Guys, if you have any kind of a life, you probably have travel plans in the future. You want to go places with cool people, see and do cool things. And you probably want to still have an amazing body, look good, feel good, perform at your best. Well, so then if you want that, you have to develop the skill, the ability to eat in a healthy way while traveling. And in this podcast, I'll outline some of the strategies that I did in order to successfully achieve healthy eating while traveling for several days in a recent Texas trip that I did. So tune in and take notes.
Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, where we hear and learn from our coaches, CrossFitters, and Glen Ed community leaders. Now, here are your hosts, Dallas and Greg.
What is up, guys? I'm Coach G, one of the coaching team here at CrossFit Edwardsville. And in this episode of the podcast, I'm going to share with you the strategies that I used to maintain a healthy diet and maintain great energy as I was going through a recent vacation across country here. As I lay out these tips and strategies, some of them you may have heard before, others you may not have. I recommend that the only power in these tips is in taking action. And I assure you, these tips work. They work really, really well as long as you're willing to actually take action on them. For me, the net effect was when I was traveling, I kept my energy up. I felt fantastic. During all of my activities, I was able to go out and make the absolute most of my trip, hang out with great people, have a great time, but have great energy for it all also. And when I got back from my trip, I didn't have saddlebags of guilt weighing me down because I had to now go and undo a bunch of damage that I'd done to my body, my health, my mindset. When I got back, I was able to quickly get back into my routines of everyday life and feel really good, get right back into killing workouts like I was used to doing. So, how did I do it? I'm going to outline 3 general categories of thought processes that you guys can take and implement on your next trip. So, tip number 1, or I should say, category number 1 is you have to eat, plan accordingly. Like, food is that one drug that everybody needs to have in order to survive. So, given that you need to eat, plan accordingly. As I was packing for my trip, I packed some non-perishable small snack items like almond butter that I could have with me, didn't require any refrigeration, and would allow me to have a self-contained protein, fat, carb, balanced snack if I needed to eat on the go and couldn't source some other kind of food along the way. Cashew butter, almond butter are great for this exact purpose because they're lightweight, require no refrigeration, no microwaving, no heating. They have protein, they have carb, they have dietary fat. So they're basically a self-contained meal and a wonderfully nutrient-rich experience all in a small, tight package. So I brought almond/cashew butter with me on the trip there, as well as on the trip back. So I had that as a fail-safe, a fallback, if I needed to eat and didn't have a better fuel source around me. I could use that almond or cashew butter snack as a way of tiding myself over until I got to my next meal. The second thing that I did ahead of time was I intentionally booked an Airbnb that had a kitchenette and a refrigerator and other food prep options built in. This is a better option than staying at a hotel where maybe you have a kitchenette, maybe you don't. What I've found is most hotels, unless you get a really nice suite, probably don't have options for you to prepare food and then store food on site. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is getting an Airbnb that has a stove, has a refrigerator, has a microwave, so you have very basic supply that you can use to prepare food if you're staying in a place for a longer time period, as I was. I was going to be there for the better part of a week on my travels. So I planned ahead by booking an Airbnb that would make it possible for me to actually do some home cooking, some self-prepared meals as I went along. The third thing in this category of you have to eat, plan accordingly, I also built in some time to my itinerary on my very first day at my destination to do some grocery shopping. I actually looked ahead to my plan and wrote it, I actually built it into my schedule that I was going to carve out like an hour, hour and a half, my first day there before all the other stuff, going to all the appointments and the meetings and the gatherings and the course. I actually built in time to go to a local grocer, and I searched for that grocer ahead of time to confirm they had the basics that I needed. And so that morning, my very first day there, I went and I bought food that I could use to make a dinner, make a breakfast, make a lunch if I needed to. And that way, then, when I got back to the Airbnb, the morning of my very first day there, I had the basics that I would need to stay on plan and recreate meals that I knew that I loved if I needed to. This is invaluable to making it possible to eat healthy on the go as you're traveling. Again, on the category of you have to eat, act accordingly, bring on plan, no refrigeration required snacks with you. That's one idea. Another is to book an Airbnb that has a kitchenette so you can make food as you go along. And thirdly, and something we'll talk about a little bit more later, is if you know that you're going out to restaurants with friends or colleagues, look up restaurants ahead of time and try and steer the group toward restaurants that make on-plan eating more possible for you. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. So that's point number one. You have to eat, plan accordingly. Point number two, you don't always have to eat, act accordingly. As it happened, a couple of times during my travel, there were no good on-plan options available where I was. And so I just opted to fast. Missing one meal didn't kill me. Missing one meal won't kill you. It is okay to take a pass and say, you know what? I'm going to wait until my next meal to eat so that I don't have to go off plan. Because there were a couple of times when I was out with some of the people with whom I was visiting that the only option for eating was something that was dramatically off plan, and I wasn't willing to go down that rabbit hole. I still hung out with the people that I was with. We had a great time, but I opted to just keep my frosty drink in hand and drink water while interacting, having a good time, hanging out with the people that I was with. We had a great time together. I just took a pass on the eating side of things so that I didn't fall off plan. The thrust of this is that you don't always have to eat. You can make it through a full 24 hours without eating if you need to. Certainly, you can make it through one or two meals without eating if you need to. I use this as a strategy occasionally. If it was the best available option, take a pass. It's okay if the people that you're with, if they are really great people, they're not going to pressure you to eat something that you maybe don't want to eat. And you shouldn't pressure yourself to eat something that you shouldn't eat. Think bigger picture, think healthy. That's point number two. You don't always have to eat, act accordingly. And point number three, restaurants can be an asset for you if you're proactive. To piggyback off something that I said earlier, if I knew that we were going to be going out to a restaurant later, I would look ahead to what restaurants were in the area, and I would identify 1 to 2 that offered foods that would be on plan for me. And then when it came time for my group to go out and have a meal, or for me to go out and have a meal by myself, in those situations, I knew some winnable battles ahead of time, and I was able to propose it to the people. Hey, I looked at it. There's some great restaurants around here. This place looks fantastic. How about we go there? By having some easy options that I could lay out in front of the people, I was able to influence and sway the group to go to a place where I could have a healthy meal. They get whatever they wanted, but I was also able to stay on plan. Besides making you a valuable member of the group, this is just good life skill to be thinking ahead and planning ahead. A lot of restaurants, like, they don't have to be your enemy. Obviously, fast food restaurants can be harder to win battles to win, but your steakhouses where you can get meat and vegetables, or to some extent Mexican restaurants where you can get meat and vegetables, they can be very winnable battles where you can get incredibly delicious, enriching, amazing meals that also don't add a whole lot of dietary, like a lot of body fat to your midline and make you bloat, make you feel terrible, give you low energy. You don't have to be subject to that. Restaurants can be an entirely winnable battle if you look ahead, plan ahead, and then act accordingly. But you have to be proactive in order to get the most out of your restaurant experience, because not all restaurants are a great option. And again, if you find yourself in a situation where you're at a place, they're catering food, and all it's available is pizza, and that's not on plan for you, you can default to point number 2. You don't always have to eat, act accordingly, you can take a pass. So to summarize some of the ideas that I use to stay on plan, eat in a healthy way during travel: number 1, you have to eat, plan accordingly. Number 2, you don't always have to eat, act accordingly. And point number 3, restaurants can be a tremendous asset for you if you're proactive. Healthy eating should be enjoyed, not endured. With a little bit of thought, a little bit of proactive action, you too can not only enjoy your travels, but enjoy your travels in a very healthy, vibrant, life fulfilling, rewarding, enriching way. And I hope that you do. I thank you guys for the gift of your time and your attention. If we've given you something that's been helpful to you, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what was helpful for you. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of the podcast.